Ladies and gentlemen, for your enjoyment today, we've got Set in the City Sunshine, which is always great. Bernard Bolan, tribute concert. We've got Dennis Tracy, Kate Delaney, and Justin Murphy. I'm sorry, I'm going to need better glasses, I think. I hope you have a wonderful time.
Hello, thanks for coming. I'm Dennis Tracy, and it's one of my greatest honours is that I'm one of Bernard's, I should say, oldest friends, and he's one of mine. I might have some older friends, but maybe not. So, okay, is that better? Yes. Shall I start again? Yes. Go off and come again? I'm Dennis Tracy. Thank you all for coming, and it's my great pleasure and honour to be one of Bernard's oldest friends, and he's one of mine, and that's a very nice thing. So thank you all for coming to this. I hope it's going to be fun. In 1969, Bernard left Lancashire and came to Australia. He didn't come as a 10 or 5 pound pom. I think he paid his way, which the country needed in those days. Yeah. Settled in Sydney. At around that time, and I can't remember when, maybe 1970, 71, Justin Murphy and I and others organised a folk festival in Canberra, which is where we lived then. And there was a bloke called Mike Eves who used to run a folk club at the Elizabeth Hotel, the folk club that we all were anxious to sing at. It was called The Liz. Anyway, he was a good musician, and he said, there's a bloke here who you really need to get on the concert. And his name's Bernard Bolan, and he really is very good. And so approved. Now, at the time, as it happens, Mike Eves had a companion who was the object of Bernard's unrequited and I suspect undeclared passion. Now, this could have been difficult because we were young in those days and not restrained and measured as we are now. But it might be said that he was obsessed with her, and as poets have always done, he expressed his passion in his work. I'll tell you something that occurred to me just now. I'm just looking at all these amazing instruments. We can all afford much better guitars these days. In the last few weeks, my life has reached a very crucial phase. The fortress round my heart's been breached. My mind is in a maze. For years I've sailed life's cruel sea, my passions kept in check. But now I think I'm on the brink of sticking out my neck. But who can know the tears I've shed, my tragic woes? Though a pearl of a girl has turned my head, my love I can't disclose. For she belongs to a friend of mine, and they hold each other dear. And of course no English gentleman could ever interfere. But she knows, I know that she knows that I know she likes me. A guile, a style, and a little smile are as clear as they can be. I couldn't make her mine, I could play the swine, I could leave my friend for flat. But of course no English gentleman would do a thing like that. But her hair is as fair as the summer corn, and it billows in the breeze. Though her eyes are soft and gentle, there are times they like to tease. And I know that for sure if she gave me a paw, I'd vow that I'd never leave her. So for me it's tears, not the big floppy ears of Sally the retriever. I can fight, I can kill, I've been through the mill, I can graft, I can grind, I can grog. But of course no English gentleman would pinch his best friend's dog. Thank you. So here we are, old friends of Bernard's, new friends of Bernard's, come to celebrate, mark and laugh at his fantastic contribution to the folk scene and to Australian culture. There's a whole... we wouldn't have had as many laughs if it hadn't been for Bernard, nor thought some deep thoughts. That's not bad. So, Bob and Margaret Fagan, who have known Bernard for about as long as I have, although I've known them, or Bob anyway, for much longer. Bob was at university with Justin Murphy and me. And back in the day.
100 years ago.
So do you want to introduce the song?
Hello, Bernard. Yes, we've all known each other for a long time. And this song we're going to sing, it was etched in our memories from a very, when the LP first came out, what great records. And I'm a bit speechless actually, Bernard, having to sing one of your songs for you in front of you when we had all those many years of listening to you and loving the music so much. So here we go. There's not many fish in the harbour today. And good chorus.
Great chorus.
Good chorus.
You should probably know or catch on. From Mortlake to Mossman for 35 years, in a 26-footer of sail. It paid for me grub and a couple of beers, but not now since the fishing has failed. There used to be blackfish, there used to be brim, there used to be dewies to tame. But now there's old beer cans and polythene bags and things too repulsive to name. But the sun is still shining and the sky is still blue. You can still taste the salt in the spray. Me lines are all baited and me nets over too. But there's not many fish in the harbour today. Once the catches you get nearly made your boat sink, with 3 of you filling the barge. But now you get now is a terrible stink, and typhoid and no extra charge. What you need is a craft that can sail the high seas, where the herring and kingfishers play. All you bring up from the harbour is dead dogs and cats, not to mention that Mrs. McRae. But the sun is still shining and the sky is still blue. You can still Roger and Rufus as well. Remember to chuck your mark over the side and complain of the hideous smell.
Once a fisherman was known for not getting upset when he sailed through the wind and the rain.
But a man can but think when he's sailing through this, what a pity you can't pull the chain. But the sun is still shining and the sky is still blue. You can still taste the salt in the spray. Me lights are all baited and me nets over too. But there's not many fish in the harbour today.
Thank you. And thank you, Bernard, for all the joy you have given and do give us.
So, around about this time, another refugee from Britain arrived in Australia. He settled first in Canberra, made some friends, joined a rugby club, worked as an accountant at a factory in Fyshwick, married a local woman. And his career as a musician, I think it's fair to say, is starting to show promise now. He's a good guy, and we think he'll go far. Please welcome the band Pete Titchener and Emma Luca and Eric Bogle.
Thank you very much. When Warren Fay sent me an email to ask me to appear, said we're doing a tribute show for Bernard Bolan, and I called through with my wife Carmel, who was in the kitchen. I said, I'm going to Sydney to do a tribute show for Bernard Bolan. And she said, oh, is the old bastard dead then? Finally, she said. I said, no, Carmel. I met Bernard, 69 I think, the year we both came across. And we used to visit him when he lived in Roseby in Sydney, and met through many festivals, and we used to walk down the seashore together, exchanging bits of our lives and get to know each other. And walks I'll never forget. They were a lot of fun and a lot of learning experience. And Bernard had the best educated thumb in the whole of the musical industry, and there's no one here can actually play the guitar like him. Thank God for that. And so I'm not going to try. I recorded this song of Bernard's on a LP that was released in Germany, believe it or not. I recorded 3 LPs for a German folk label, and this song was one of them. It's called The Old Number 10. And it's about Bernard going back to his local pub after years in Australia, hoping we could see a familiar face, but everything had changed. And so this is what the song's all about. In the town I once called me home, 'cause early in winter the evening was chill, just in for the day and then far off tomorrow, and just a few hours to kill. And though I was indifferent, my feet were quite certain of just where they wanted to be to be made out of glass. I said I used to come here, you know, years and years ago. Well, sir, it must warm your heart to see how we changed it and quite rearranged it and got it all looking quite smart. I can tell by your clothes you're a fella who knows how a good pub should be run. No spitting or swearing or overall wearing like the old days when you used to run. On drinking men at the old number 10. You seem such a long time ago. You seem so much different since last time we met. But maybe it's me, I don't know. With a heart that was heavy, as I was just ready to finish my Guinness and go, I saw an old face that glistened in a fire that had listened to more tales than you'll ever know. With the years in between, it was foolish to dream that he'd ever remember my face. But I bought him a beer, and as I sat it down near him, the old man looked up from his place. By Christ, is it thee? He said, well, bother me, he said, champion to see thee again. Isn't it strange how you just haven't changed? I said, neither have you, my old friend. How well is it thee? He said, I'll go to sea. He said, champion to see thee again. Isn't it strange how you just haven't changed? I said, neither have you, my old friend. You drinking men at the old number 10. Seems such a long time ago. You seem so much different since last time we met. But maybe it's me, I don't know. You drinking men at the old number 10. You seem such a long time ago. You seem so much different since the last time we met. But maybe it's me, I don't know.
I thought that the most impressive part of that performance was Eric's Lancashire accent. Bernard's biggest commercial success in music probably came with the song we're going to hear next. Sadly, he wasn't around to exploit it because he was, I think, in South America at a time when this song, which is called The Rose Bay Ferry, was being played every second song, it seemed, on the radio, at least in Canberra, where I lived. Bernard then went from South America to London, where he worked for a while with the CIA. I'm not joking. The CIA, as you know, is the Chemical Industries Association of Great Britain. And he had this absurd story about it was a lobby industry group that used to do its stuff around Westminster and talking to ministers and public servants. And I can't remember whether it was him or a colleague, had to go to see Lord somebody or other in his ancestral pile out in the countryside. And he drove and went in and was shown in by the butler. And was a bit apprehensive, and shown into a library where they were told to wait for his lordship. And there was a young, quite elegantly dressed man sitting there reading the paper, and they nodded at one another. And then the host, Lord, whoever it was, came in and said, "Oh, hello, Bernard, good to see you. This is the King of Denmark." And the young man stood up and bowed slightly and said, "Norway, actually." Was that you? All right. Now, this is something that doesn't happen every day. I'd like to introduce the King of Norway. Banjo Patterson, in the guise of Warren Fay, is going to sing the Rose Bay Ferry.
With Marcus Holden, because
Neither of us know it.
when I rang Dennis up and I said, "Dennis, look, I've decided we're going to do a tribute concert to our old chum Bernard Bolan," and he said, "Oh, really? Who's doing it?" And I said, "You are." I've always been able to con him, and look, I'm so thrilled that this has taken place and that Bernard, you've come up. He sort of said, "And what are you singing?" And I said, "Nothing, I'm the artistic director." And he said, "No, you've got to sing something." Bernard liked that, and I said, "Well, Rose Bay Ferry." And of course I've never sung it in my life, and I've had a very busy time recently, so I decided to play with this 2 weeks ago and see if I could get the tune. You write ridiculous tunes. And then I conned Marcus to do it. And incidentally, for those interested in the history of records and so forth, when I set Larrikin Records up in 1974, I still remember most of the catalogue numbers because I used to stand on sort of plastic milk crates to pick the stock orders out of the shops. And Eric's first album on Larrikin was Now I'm Easy, which was LRF, stood for Long Playing Record Format or something. Now I'm Easy, and that was LRF 041, and Bernard Bolan's album was LRF 042. There you go. Every morning at 8:25, down to the Rose Bay Wharf I drive, park my Humber underneath a tree, jump on board and then I'm free. Free says you, well, how can that be when you always end up at Circular Quay? Oh, doubting Tom, let me explain, when I get on board I sing this sweet refrain. Where are you going today, Mr. Nicholson? Where is it going to be? Don't turn left, turn right down the harbour and out to the open sea. Throw down your compass, right hand down, and it's through the heads we'll sail. Our yo-ho will all be merry on the Rose Bay Ferry. If we run out of petrol, we'll row, row, row. If we run out of petrol, we'll row. Well, Monday's Java, Tuesday's Spain, Wednesday's Tokyo and back again. Only trouble is there isn't any gents. What do you do for 20 cents? Take off my raincoat and my woolly vest. See the naked ladies on my chest. That's how you used to sing it. Today is Friday, so hold on tight. We're off to Trinidad and back tonight. Where are you going today, Mr. Nicholson? Where is it going to be? Oh, don't turn left, turn right down the harbour and out to the open sea. Throw down the anchor, right hand below. Pull your finger out and wave goodbye to your home. Oh, we're off to Nantucket, so give that man a bucket, for it's choppy out there on the foam. My boys, it's choppy out there on the foam.
This is good, Warren.
Yeah, we're getting there. Oh, we're doing all right. Sometimes when I get... Are you you still playing with me? Sometimes when I get up late, I only reach the jetty at 8:30. But that doesn't ruin my worldwide trip, for the 837 is a battleship. Off on the dock with the guns on high, mince up manly as we pass by. If you're out of rockets, well, go up the stairs. You can get some from the fella who collects the fares. Oh, where are we going today, Mr. Nicholson? Where is it going to be? Don't turn left, turn right down the harbour and out to the open sea. And though we are but dudes and doctors, at heart we are men of the sea. So let's all be merry on the Rose Bay ferry, and we finish off at Circular Quay, my boys. We finish off at Circular Quay.
You might wonder, one of the things that's often surprised me is more people haven't recorded Bernard songs. And Warren hinted at the reason just then. They're the very bugger to play. The chords are very hard, and the words are tricky. I suppose you'd say they're idiosyncratic. So that song was played a lot around about that time, in the early 70s, on commercial radio. And there's a legend that he needed to really capitalise on its commercial success. He needed a comparable song with a Melbourne theme. So he sat down, wrapped his wet towel around his head and wrote the Toorak Bus. And somebody said, "That's nice, Bernard, but they don't do buses in Toorak. They do trams." And Bernard said, "Okay, just change all the us's to ams." I'll tell you an interesting thing that was the subject of my researches. The room you're in is called the Mitchell Room, and it's called the Mitchell Room after Major Thomas Mitchell, who was the Surveyor General of New South Wales back in the day. He fought in the Napoleonic Wars. He was very busy in the Peninsular War against Napoleon and his people. He has a singular honour of having had a cockatoo named after him. That's nice. Also, I read in Wikipedia, where I was doing my research, he was the last man in New South Wales recorded as having fought a duel. He was irascible by nature. He said, somebody said something rude about him, and he challenged him to a duel. And so one morning at dawn, they went out into Hyde Park with their pistols. The pistols, by the way, are in the Museum of Australia. Both fired, both missed. Now, I have a personal connection to the next song, which is going to be sung to you by Jane Campbell and Maggie Murphy, and accompanied by Lawrence Osborne. And that is this, that oh dear, I knew I'd do this. My first marriage took place at a little church in a town called Clunes, which is in Lismore, near Lismore, in northern New South Wales. And it was a nice church, a nice wedding, and for a time a nice marriage. The Presbyterian church, I can't remember what it was called, but the presiding parson was a Reverend McKinley, and he was a Scottish man, and he was a nice man. I'd never met him before, and I've never met him since, but he was a nice man, and this inspired Bernard to write the next song, which either Jane or Maggie will introduce.
Thank you, Dennis. Yes, we're going to be singing the Reverend Duncan Donald
And I was just going to mention, though, that not so long ago, Lawrence and Maggie and I went to visit Bernard in Beechworth. And not only is Bernard a writer of terrific songs, but he's also the maker of extraordinary and beautiful gardens. And in fact, we all have some of Bernard in our own gardens. It was wonderful to spend a few hours being guided by Bernard. Yes, so the Reverend Duncan Donald we are going to sing, and on his recording of this song, Bernard says, I was going to call this The Loneliness of the Long Distance Parson, but I couldn't fit that on the label, so it's become the Reverend Duncan Donald. And we thought we might just contribute a third title for it, Bernard, and we thought we might call it An Ode to Israel Folau. But perhaps we won't. Lawrence, not at Bernard's speed, okay?
Sunday morning, here again. Open up the door and let them in. Try to light the candle and forget to ring the bell. A saintly smile for everyone. It's 10:30 and the show goes on. Try to save 200 souls from flaming bloody hell. And the Reverend Duncan Donald goes into his little kirk. It's a weary way of living, but it surely beats hard work. Thumping out the Bible and flushing out the sins, beaming at the bastards and christening their twins. Up off your knees, that's your lot for another day. Up off your knees and go away. Don't forget to take your spirits with you when you leave. Young Jackie Gordon every week with a jukebox piece and a great technique taps it on the floor box as he slips it up his sleeve. And the Reverend Duncan Donald goes out to the churchyard gate, where all the godless lads whose girls are nonconformists wait. He notes with disapproval their grubby suntan skins, and he tucks his tucks at everyone and envies them their sins. I heard you coughing, Mrs. Bruce. It's good to know that your chest is loose. But what the Reverend thought then was not what the Reverend said. God go with you, Miss McHugh. Thank you, Reverend Daniel. But they both are rather Satan went along instead. And the Reverend Duncan Donald wanders back into his house. He takes off his holy coat and he returns it to the mouse. He has a piece of shortbread and a little herbal tea, and he watches the Archbishop through his drink on the TV.
it's 21st ballad here in the Burning songs.
I'm staying on, Dennis. I'll take care of it. I came to Sydney in February 1969 also. And you don't have to keep calculating, it's 50 years ago. I moved into a flat in Bondi with some friends I made on the boat coming over. And first Saturday we found out that pubs in Australia are not the same as they used to be in England at that time anyway. So we went down to the Bondi Hotel, which is basically a swill hole, and I said, I've got to find a folk club. I used to go to folk clubs in England, so I found the Elizabeth Folk Club, which is just round the corner there in those days. I walked in, folk music playing, and I walked up, ordered a beer, and there's a young guy at the bar just by me. After a while, we struck up a conversation, and I found out he'd just come out too, but virtually at the same time as me. And we were talking about the music and the pubs and everything, and I said, this one night hotel, Swill Hole, and I said, what we're going to do is we're going to have a party next Saturday. Would you like to come over to our flat in Bondi for a party? And he said, yeah, that would be great. And that was the beginning of the most fantastic friendship, 50 years now with Bernard there. And like Dennis and Eric, so many great memories. Bernard was in the legal profession, and he wrote a song about like the longevity of work for solicitors and lawyers. They just seem to keep going forever. So that's the song I'm going to sing. Uncle Fred, I've just got to get the tune in the other one. I was practicing, Jane and Maggie still get on to me about my Birmingham accent, and I was practicing it, you know. And I says, Uncle Fred's a lawyer, and they says, Maggie says, lawyer? She says, it's lawyer. They'll never understand it. I says, lawyer, what's the difference? My Uncle Fred retired last week at the age of 82, so he thought it only proper to prepare a little do. My Uncle Fred's a lawyer and he lives in Sydney town. In the office is Brindle, Bogle, Trimble, Cock and Brown. It had always been intended I should follow in his steps and not become a parson or else one of Walton's reps. So I studied for my exam, so it nearly split my head, and soon I took my proper place alongside Uncle Fred. Uncle Fred is 82 today. Time to hang his wig up and to put his books away. Time to say farewell to Torrance, title and the thoughts, and no more thinking complicated excise duty thoughts. Mr. Bogle bought the gin and Brindle bought the beer. Trimble, Cock and Brown have not been round for many years. The office girls appeared in pearls and some with purple eyes, and in the usual fashion I was sent to get the pies. A wooden chiming clock was bought at very great expense, and a little card with flowers the office bar with a pencil jar, the cashier lost his head, and he drank lemonade with a razor blade to the health of Uncle Fred. Uncle Fred, you're 82 today. Time now for the Law Society's pension fund to pay. No more hereunto aforesaid being now. The time to pay attention to here and now. Mr. Bolan began his speech in praise of Uncle Fred, when he choked upon a cherry and he turned a fearful red. Well, we beat him on his back until his teeth fell on the floor, and in the pandemonium no one saw the office door. For standing there as large as life was a banker named Max, for whom old Fred had once prepared a scheme for saving tax. He said, well, Fred is leaving, I'm glad he hasn't gone, 'cause I just got out of jail this week and I'd love to join the fun. Poor Fred, he's 82 today. Time to say farewell to all his friends up in Pompeii. No more telling clientele, the doctor is wrong, tracking correspondence down, wishing he was young. After Max came Mr. Phelps, who lives up in Wollongong. He'd bought a house in Wollstonecraft, but Fred had got it wrong. Then poor Herbert Wilkins, Mrs. shedding floods of tears. I'm a speeding charge, he'd gone to Fred and he got in 14 years. Well, then a hush fell over all as from the ground beneath came smoke and flames, 20 names crowned in a fiery roof. God bless you, Fred, from the Grateful Dead, Satan's chorus sang. Pour down in hell for the clientele that you managed to get hanged. Fred, you're 82 today. Time to take your specs off and to give the game away. Time to leave your office in the middle of the town with a compliment of Trimble, Bogle, Trimble, Coffin down.
There's quite a few old friends here. We're going to hear from Justin Murphy, who is absolutely my oldest friend. I met him the year I left school. So, and also I see here is Brian Knox. Now, you mightn't know Brian Knox, but those of you who are enthusiasts and knowledgeable about football will, of course, recognise that Brian was the founder and captain of the Fishwick Ferrets, an astonishing soccer team for which Justin and I and he, and occasionally Bernard, would play. We were based in Canberra. It was a church competition, and when Brian, the story is that when Brian rang and said he had a bunch of blokes and could he join, they said yes, but you know, we have mostly religious affiliations, don't you? And Brian said, that's fine, we're all lapsed Catholics. And so it was. So we ran on one time. Bernard had come up to Canberra, and came on to join us. I suppose we were shorter blokes. Well, that's not very flattering, is it? We were delighted to have a soccer player of his status standing join us, and we ran onto the ground in a Canberra winter's day, and there was a very po-faced referee, and the other team, who may well have been the Reed Methodists, or perhaps the Yarralumla Baptists, or perhaps the Salvation Army, who were very dirty. And the referee said, well, before we start, I'd like to ask the captain of the other team, never us, to say a prayer. And so they all bowed their heads like this. Picture Israel Folau. They all bowed their heads, and we all tried to stop laughing. And one of them, this spotty young man, said, Almighty God, we ask you to bless our enterprise today, save us from injury, and Christ help us to play by the rules. And Bernard said, and Christ help you if you don't. And immediately a penalty for blasphemy. I think that Bernard's nicest song, the most lovely tune, and wonderful words, is called "Send the City Sunshine." And he may talk to us a little later, and he'll explain how he came to write it. But it was about a man called Michael Chase, with whom he worked, who was a wise old man. Bernard might tell you more about him. And he was of a sort that I don't know exists much these days, who didn't take it all that seriously. He was good at what he did. He was a lawyer. But he thought that it was just as important to go to lunch for a couple of hours, and why just have one bottle of wine with your roast beef. I don't know that you do that now. Anyway, so "Send the City Sunshine" was the title of Bernard's one of Bernard's albums. I'd love to have sung it for you, but the tune just defeated me. I couldn't work out the chords. I'm embarrassed to say. But the good news is that this gives you a chance to appreciate the really wonderful words. And here to read it somewhere is Justin Murphy.
This has been slightly testing in digesting this beautiful song, and I hope just by speaking it, I can do it justice. Thank you. That better? Yes. Thank you. And at the end, they asked him if he thought it quite the thing for bankers to pen ballads, or for city men to sing. For city men have rules and regulations to obey. Their coats of many colours are predominantly grey. But because his day was ending, he could give a straight reply. So he said he thought that city men should learn to laugh and cry. And let the light that shines their night illuminate the day. And since he could not sing for them, then surely he could pray. So Lord, you'd better send the city sunshine, so that city men could see the light of day. Through the neon signs still shimmer, yet somehow it seems dimmer today. But when the city heard him sing, its children weren't impressed. They said our aged colleague now is surely past his best. For in city days and city ways, it's known we should hold dear not those we choose, but those we use, and those that buy us beer. To work we give, each day we live until the day we die, and only madmen think of laughter, and only weak men ever cry. And the young must prove how, unlike him, their fires have not gone cold, but steadily becoming far more pompous than the old. So, Lord, you better send the city sunshine, so that city men might know the night from the day. Through the markets looking flatter, it doesn't seem to matter today. But his prayer for them was not yet done, for then they heard him say, may they tread a little gentle on their journey through the day, and learn that when their men, so full of life, begin to die, it starts when men of laughter lose the twinkle from their eye. So, Lord, you'd better send the city sunshine, so that city men might see to find their way. In the city, bells are ringing. Then why is no one singing today?
Okay, so there's a matter of huge controversy. Who was the first chairman of the New South Wales Folk Federation? Was it Bernard Bolan? Was it Danny Watson? No, whatever, there is no doubt as to who the current chairman of the New South Wales Folk Federation is. It's Brian Jonathan.
Well, actually, there is some doubt as to who it might be, because you can never tell in this game, you know. And you might walk out the door and find you're not wrong with the president. And after this, excuse me. I'm only doing this because the artistic director did it as well. So yes, I'm the current chairman, although they call me the president these days, because I think maybe the Folk Federation was a bit more left-wing, and even more left-wing in those days than it is now.
You look as daft as Trump.
So anyway, look, when I am I coming through? Okay. So when I saw this song, because I was asked to sing it, I thought, my God, nothing has changed at all. And just to prove that, I ended up writing a couple of verses at the end myself, but nothing's changed. My voice when I sing is no heavenly chorus. In fact, they do say like a flatulent walrus, and I strum with my thumb, which sets critics all snorting. They don't realize I say fingers for cotton. My knowledge of folk music is quite abysmal. In learned discussion I stand looking dismal, but because I talk loud and with strange pronunciation, they've made me the chairman of the Folk Federation. But they could not know when they made their decision that I would react just like nuclear fission. I've got magnet power, and just to prove to you, I'm changing me title from chairman to Führer. A book of my thoughts will be issued to members, and a feast for my birthday they'll hold each December. And to stop the committee from trying its tricks on, there's only me on it and President Nixon. May arpeggios all turned into andantes, and I thought Lloyd was some friend of my auntie's. I hate all those songs where men screw their sisters, and I thought that Garfunkel was something like Blisters. But now I'm the chairman of the Folk Federation. There's going to be changes and new regulations. A new order will flood all my bases and trebles. My secret police will take care of the the rebels. When my harmonies waver, when I stand quite solemn, you'll all smile politely and say, very modern. When I walk out the loo with me zipper left open, all men shall depart, and all women start hoping. All singers from Melbourne will come, 'cause we need you and pay, and sing here for peanuts, the usual procedures. All Scotsmen will get on the next train to Peebles, and the Bush Music Club will sing nothing but Beatles. Now songs about drinking, and songs about whoring, and songs about sheep are exceedingly boring. No, we with some ballads and songs of the sea. In future all songs will be sung about he, me. And to show you respect, I will recommend that you might all like to think of erecting a statue, and a guard will stand by it by night and by day, with the purpose of keeping the pigeons away. But here comes disaster. My ruse has been rumbled, my noose has been knotted, my bar has crumbled. They formed a committee with Irish and Scots on, headed by one Daniel Rasputin Watson. All of my scheming and work's gone to waste. They're now singing ballads of feeling and taste. Good words and great music are flooding the nation. Balls to the New South Wales Folk Federation. Now, just to bring it up to date a bit, I wrote a few words myself. When I said, hey committee, let's do a folk fest, they replied. Sorry. When I said, hey committee, let's stage a folk fest, they sighed. We're retired, only here for the rest. But now it's all done, and no longer troubling. We won't send you back on the next plane to Dublin. So thanks all for coming. You Main Street, Pitt Street buzz. I don't know who's more chuffed, Wilson Parkin or us. The Fed would be dead if you hadn't bought tickets. Thanks be to God that you didn't say stick it.
So Bernard's songs seem to change between slapstick, W.S. Gilbert, and also very gentle, tender, loving sorts of songs, full of regrets and sometimes and deep thoughts, and all good, great words. I was always so envious. So this is one of the latter. This is Rhonda Moore, whom you know. The song.
I think I need my cheat sheet as well. Right? Yes. Right. Okay. Yes, I've known Bernard for, I guess, since 1969. We're all very involved in the folk scene then. I was from the Shack, the Northern Beaches, and still am, the reincarnation of the Shack. And I always remember it was a very special night when Bernard came down to the Shack. And then, of course, we had the 20th Century Folk Club in the 80s, and that was always, again, a really special night when we had Bernard. So this is this lovely little song that I really like of Bernard. It has a beautiful way with words. And so it stands to reason, and so it runs to rhyme, that this matter of things mending merely takes a little time. The fiddler's fixed the engine, and we'll soon be on our way. The captain says he's sorry, he regrets the short know, old friends, my dearest loves, you don't need me to say who waited and who willed me on, that I might sing today. Your love won't sway this lovely day. Please pass it down the line, that the process of repairing takes a tempering of time. And so it stands to reason, and so it runs to rhyme, that the matter of things mending merely takes a little time. And so it stands to reason, and so it runs to rhyme, that this matter of things mending merely takes a little time, a little time, a little time.
This is terrific. Look. So, well, I suppose, what's Bernard's funniest song? Something horrible involving a cat. Please welcome back Eric Bogle. And Pete. And
Right, which one I'll do? This one. Right. John Bernard and I were in East Germany in 1986, 84 I think it was, doing a wee festival, a political song festival. We were surprised to get the invitation, but we did it, and anyway, I got a wee bit sick of all this po-faced political shit. And and I used to try to ingratiate myself to the Germans by singing the horse festivals. No, by trying to introduce my songs in sort of broken German, you know. And so I'd say, this Lied is called Basingstoke, es über ein toten Katzen. And they'd go, toten Katzen? What's a fucking dead cat? That's how I translated them. Aye. I should have been more circumspect, because they only gave us a single ticket to get there, and not a return to get back. We had to wait a week for that. Right. Okay. Okay. I've got a cat called Basingstoke. He's a cat you must admire. He's black and white, and he lost in the night when he jumped into the fire. What a night! The story must be told. So keep your seat, for you're in for a treat that'll make your blood run cold. Basingstoke, he used to be so furry until he tried to come through the canary. Up he jumped, soaring ever higher. When the soaring stopped and down he dropped in the middle of the fire. Oh, and fire had swung my Basingstoke went roaring round the room. His fiery tongue and his blackened bump appeared to spell his doom. What a cat, whoever would have guessed? He could sink his rear in a pint of beer while beating up his chest. And Basingstoke, he really is a trial. It takes guts to sing when you're on fire. We're all back, you should have heard him scream. Stuck like glue at the bottom of the loo and trying to pull the chain. Now, life's no joke for blazing stokes, so once the ugly rumour. For the fiery moth did not just drop him off his sense of humour. Poor old chap, the prospect it appalled. With the jumping down, with the thump, and he bound the fall, his thunder, doff, and blazing stokes. It truly was a charm. Now ladies jump, they talk of fried banana, the former spring quad, around the time. Just sits in his eyes with tears in his eyes, was the only gracious smile and brazen stroke. He used to be so hairy until he tried to come through the canary. Poor old chap, he was too young to retire. Once he was handsome, happy and hairy, just a red-blooded pussy with a taste for canary. I come somewhere between a fritter and a fairy. That's my favourite line anyway. When he fell into the fire.
Thank you, Eric and Pete and Emma. Now, it's time to hear from the man who made all this possible. Would you please welcome Bernard Bolan.
Heard that I was coming and insisted on coming along. Good evening. Afternoon. I wrote something out to just mutter to you, but it's pretty well all been said. So I'll just fly by ear, if you don't mind. To begin with, let me just say one thing that when I think about how long ago it was that I wrote some of these songs, I think of the third verse of one of my songs. The third verse goes, "Now that I am old, love, eyes can hardly see, peering out the window, making pots of tea. And it takes me half an hour just to finish off a pea, but come and suck a peanut and I'll jog you on me knee." Now, what I thought was remotely humorous about that all those years ago, I can't imagine. But let me just say, what truly, it's going to sound like false modesty, but I was genuinely very surprised when I heard that this was going to be put on, because, as Dennis and others have said, my music for me was, when I arrived in '69, I was a corporate bloke. That's what I did in the office during the day. And I used to, when I first arrived here, that's what I did all day long. And in the evening I'd go, as Lawrence has said, I found the folk clubs and I'd listen to Colin Dryden, Declan Athley, many others, far better voices and far better guitarists than me. So I sort of concluded that unless I did something different, then I wasn't going to have much. And so I wrote a song about going up in the lifts. Not many of those around. So in the Summit building where I worked, then I wrote the Rose Bay Ferry, and someone suggested, let's make a record. What a great idea, I thought. But this was a long time ago. Naive chap that I was, I thought that'd be lovely. I could give a couple of copies to my mates and send one to my mother in England. That would be terrific. I did actually send her one, and she was very annoyed by the language. Can't win them all. But anyway, I sort of made the record, but then bloody, what was his name? Clive Robertson started to play it on the breakfast show, just when the bosses at work were all driving into and now, bear in mind, I've not been here very long. In Britain, I'm quite sure, as Dennis said, a few years after that, I went back and worked in London. And I'm quite sure, had the same thing happened in London, my phone would have rung and I'd been asked to go up and see somebody senior, and they'd have said, Bernard, these little ditties that you've been singing, I'm sure they're a lot of fun. But, you know, the company does have an image, you know. So, indeed, a few weeks afterwards, my phone did ring, and it was Jack Campbell. He should be remembered forever, the assistant general manager. And I went up thinking, here we go. And I got in, and he was obviously busy, and he said, oh, Bernard, he said, look, mate, I'm sorry I'm busy, but he said, I love that song of yours they're playing. My missus was wondering if could we get a copy? I could have kissed him. This was Australia for me, you know, absolutely lovely, so different. And so for 20 odd years afterwards, I was able to live a sort of double life. And it really was a terrific thing because it meant that neither one of them owned you. You know, there was always something else. And so it was that many years later, when I moved to the country and lived amongst trees and things, that I was doing a lot of travelling, as someone said, really enjoying my garden, pardon me, and I just said, enough. And at that point, I just decided to stop doing it. And however, one thing that I must mention is that I'm not dead. About 5 or 6 years ago, I gather, a friend of mine from Beechworth was going through Sydney, and they played one of the records, and then the fellow after it said, and there's the late great Bernard Bolan. So bless his heart, he rang him up and said I wasn't. Well,
Great.
but unfortunately, well, as you see, not quite anyway, you know. But excuse me. But anyway, I sort of was grateful for that. But the story was out, and it's mixed up. It was all out, because then somebody tells me, this was a year or so later, that there was a committee in the ACT government that chooses people and names of people for the naming of new streets in the suburbs that they're building. And I was down for the Bernard Bolan Crescent. And then they heard I wasn't dead. And apparently they have to pick people. They only pick people who are dead because you might get up to bad things afterwards. and foul, or indeed, as we're now learning these days, might have been up to bad things all your bloody life. Nobody knew about it. So whether I'm on the list now, I'm not sure. And I don't propose to let them know when I die. But suffice to say, bless you all. It's been a real honour to truly, it has been a surprise and an honour to me to listen to all my friends singing. And the lovely things you've said, it was totally unexpected for me. and I'm so grateful. Thank you again.
How are we going for time?
We're way over time, and I've got to say, Bernard, the next 50 songs you write better be shorter. And we do have people who are busting to get in.
Okay.
Go dirty diggies, so.
Folks, thanks all for coming. Bernard, thank you for the music. Eric, all the singers, thank you very much.